Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. My name is Ella Sheba O'Day. I am a medical student at the University of Illinois College of Medicine at Peoria. Thank you so much for arriving camera ready and for keeping your cameras on. We're so happy to have you tonight. Tonight's session is titled Securing and Succeeding Ophthalmology Away Rotations. The session is brought to you by UEComp's Ophthalmology Student Interest Group and Sharing the Scope, a medical student-run initiative sharing OphthoScoop with all aspiring ophthalmologists, especially medical students without home programs. Before we get started tonight, I would like to extend a very warm greeting to all of our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And to all of our participants as well, thank you so much for taking time away from your evenings to be with us tonight. Without further ado, we'd like to present you with tonight's agenda. Aaliyah, can you please share your screen? So we just went through our welcome. And now Cecilia is going to give an introduction of each of our wonderful panelists.
Lucy might be joining me for this introduction. So we have 6 wonderful panelists. We have Harold Dorsey, who's an M4 at Howard University College of Medicine. He completed 1 away rotation and matched at Mass Eye and Ear. We have Neri Rostomian, and she's a DO candidate at KCU's College of Osteopathic Medicine. She matched at Sunny Downstate, which was one of the 7 places she did an away at. We have Terry Henry Jr. He attends Meharry Medical College. He completed 3.5 away rotations and matched at Virginia Commonwealth University Medical Center Ophthalmology. And we have Tiffany Chang. She's an M4 at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Tiffany completed 3 aways and matched at Wills Eye Hospital. We also have Catherine Quinones. She goes to UTHSC College of Medicine. She did 2 aways rotations and matched at UT Memphis. We also have Shayu Kai, and she attends University of Virginia School of Medicine. She completed 2 away rotations and will be a resident at New York Eye and Ear Infirmary. Thank you all for joining.
So we're going to begin with the prepared questions, and we've kind of organized them in order of students thinking about doing their away rotations, preparing to do their away rotations, and then actually starting their away rotations. And our speakers may answer the questions in any order they feel comfortable. The first question is, what specific resources helped you secure your desired away rotations?
So I guess first, Dr. Law, she's a ophthalmologist down here at Vanderbilt, and she frequently would send out emails throughout the cycle of different schools that might have an, just a program. And through that, I was able to get one, the Colorado one. And so when I rotated Iowa, prior to that, I had reached out to the department and found a mentor. And so it was basically just reaching out to the people. And then also using the VSAS or VSLO application.
And if it's okay, I do have a question. So where is that half away rotation come from?
Yeah, so the half away rotation is just basically a 2-week rotation. So that was at Vanderbilt. And so all the other ones were 4 weeks, and I did 2 weeks at Vanderbilt.
I'd like to echo reaching out, if there's a place that you really are interested in rotating at, I think don't feel bad about reaching out to the program director at that institution. So, because sometimes they can help you with that, and also help you. I mean, they know that you're interested in coming. They can kind of look for your application when it comes through either VSLO, and then one of my away rotations was a non-VSLO rotation. So they also can help smooth things over with that as well. So, and then I think my primary source was actually talking to upperclassmen who had just gone through the process ahead. So kind of what you're doing tonight, I think, is a really great resource for finding out what rotations are good and which ones are helpful I don't know if everyone is kind of familiar, there's like this like big source Google spreadsheet, and there, as part of it, there's a lot of information as far as you can take it with a grain of salt because it is anonymous, unsourced on Google, but you can find out when when notifications about when rotations accepted were like sent out through there. And then also there's other info, like you can find out, there was more information about as far as like when the applications were due. And so I think that's helpful when you're looking at your away rotations, because the application is like, we're kind of like getting right to the point where it's really important for that. And I'll drop the link in the chat.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what's been said. But when I was applying, I didn't reach out to anybody. I kind of just applied on Vslo and just threw a bunch of apps out and kind of see where, people would take me. But when it came time to kind of decide which programs I wanted to apply to, I talked to my mentors, that they're a really valuable resource in terms of, if you have like a specific location you want to go, they might know people there that could help you out. So I ended up doing 3, 2 in New York and 1 on the West Coast.
Echoing Tiffany, I also applied mostly through VSLO. And it does help. I mean, I'm an osteopathic student, as mentioned earlier, so I had to do a little bit more research to see where DOs have been accepted in the past, and then kind of made a spreadsheet for myself based off that. So doximetry was kind of helpful for me because I could search through like months and months and years prior to have DO candidates or candidates ever been accepted to this program. If so, how long ago? Do they currently have a DO on staff or not? So these are things that don't necessarily apply to the other applicants, but if you are coming from an osteopathic background, that's something I would heavily encourage you doing, because you're more likely to match at a program that is deemed quote unquote DO friendly.
Right, and I just can echo what everyone's been saying, like using VSAS is a good source. A lot of them, if not most of them, are on there, but then there are also some that aren't. So for those programs, just reaching out to the PD or somebody that you know and maybe rotated there in the past is the best option to find out like how to apply for that away rotation.
Yeah, I also mostly just use VSLO, and then you can find a lot of they pretty much list out all the requirements that they would want, like if there's a letter of rec that they need, or your personal statement, which can be just like a rudimentary version of what your real one will actually be, but they will have like all of those requirements listed out, and then when you upload it, it actually like provides a check mark for you, so that can help you kind of determine what else you need. One thing that like I kind of was delayed on, that I think if you guys can start getting prepared, is like first like any personal statement that you might want to do, and a lot of places want a letter of rec. And then secondly, for my school at least, it's like I had to set up a student health appointment, because a lot of them will have like a health sheet that you need to fill out, and there's like an official one for VSLO that a lot of schools will ask for, like an immunization sheet and just like an annual checkup. That could be something you want to like plan ahead and prepare.
Yeah, to follow up on what you just mentioned, like the HIPAA compliance, some of the programs require that. I know another program will require like a 10-panel drug screen. It really depends on where you apply to, and some require additional like letters of recommendations too, and proof of like malpractice insurance and all those little nitty-gritty things.
I think AAMC has like a form like that. I think most of the ways like use for like their immunizations. So that's a good place to start. But then if you need like anything on top of that, the program usually has it written somewhere that they also need something extra. But like if you look up AAMC, like away immunization form, like you can find that on the internet too.
Thank you. Lots of great information, and you guys answered a bunch of our questions. The next question is, what is the proper email etiquette for requesting an away rotation position? I know you guys mentioned that we can email program directors. So what is the proper email etiquette if a student wishes to do that?
So at least for programs that I applied on Vizsla, I just applied through kind of that service first. And then I would like give it like a few days, maybe like a week. And then what I would do is I emailed the coordinator. Usually their emails are listed. I would just be like, hey, like I'm really interested in rotating here. Like, please let me know like if you need any more materials or, you know, what have you. And kind of just like keeping them in the loop, and I think like showing interest, because I think a lot of students probably just throw out a lot of apps. But if you like really want to go somewhere and you like follow up, like the coordinator will like forward that to like the PD. So I feel like that might be a good bet, like first applying and getting everything ready and then sending up a follow-up being like, I submitted on this date. Just want to continue expressing my interest in your program.
And I think there's like a balance of being like showing enthusiasm, but then also being professional. You don't want to come off as unprofessional. And even if you're like emailing a coordinator, they're not the PD, but the way you interact with like the staff at a program, I think reflects on your character. So, you know, just like the basic like check for your grammar mistakes and stuff like that, but just like I would say enthusiastic, but like not unprofessional.
I think something, so if any of you are of URM background, a lot of there are some programs that do have stipends or like scholarship programs that are available. And that kind of provided like kind of a conduit, kind of also a way for me to reach out to program directors when I was initially like applying, because I wanted to confirm if there's still space or funding for the specific rotations. A lot of times too, if you're specifically also if you're interested in going to one of those locations, they'll provide extra resources and support for you while you're there and while you're going through the application process. So I just wanted to put a plug for that because I know these rotations are really expensive. It's a big burden to be paying like double rent and then also be in the stress of being in a new environment and like on a month-long interview. So I want to make sure that that was thrown out there.
Thank you. So once we submit our applications, how should we then prepare for our aways? I was at a panel yesterday and Terry, you mentioned to not enter an away rotation without a plan. So what should that plan be composed of?
So I think so knowing certain things. So like I think there's a website called Tim Root that has like the basics for a lot of ophthalmology. As a med student, yeah, awesome. Yeah, as a med student, like we don't get a lot of exposure to ophthalmology, as you guys all know. But then, so what we need to know in like a clinic environment is like more than what we learned during medical school. So just starting with some of the basics on Tim Root, and then also just knowing your schedule. Like if you're going into like a shadow somebody like a retina clinic the next day, just like making sure you know like the layers of the retina or like some like common pimp questions such as those, and you can find the answers to stuff like that on Tim Root. So just like just knowing like the major drugs used to treat like glaucoma, for example, if you're going to glaucoma clinic the next day, just general things so that like you kind of have a little background of like what you're going to be like the pathologies you're going to be seeing the next day.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I'd say you really have to utilize their EHR. Wherever you go to, a learning curve will be, you know, getting used to the new EHR potentially. And so I'd recommend like taking the first day or first couple of days, or even like stay after clinic just to understand the EHR, look at the cases that came through, and see if there's any like common things. Like some clinics have like, you know, retina Tuesdays, glaucoma on Wednesdays. And so knowing ahead of time what specific surface is going to be on the specific day, looking at the patients that are going to come through, or just like the type of pathologies that are, you know, will be coming through. And then from there, I went to, let's say, one of the books. And so on my plastics rotation, I was using like a Jeff Nerad oculoplastic book. And so I'm looking at the major surgeries or major procedures or common patient presentations that come through. And then I'm learning the medical treatment, I'm learning the anatomy, and just going through the anatomy, like back and forth. And so during procedures, I kept a book with me, just so I could make sure that I'm keeping track of what I'm doing. But also the night prior to that, I went to the EHR again, looked at the previous surgery that was most similar to what we'll be doing. And I essentially just read through that and committed that kind of to memory, to my best ability, and just use that as a guideline during the surgery. So I know, what's going to be happening next. I'm able to anticipate potential questions. I know what might be difficult. And then looking at the book is like, okay, it's really, solidifying that information. And so I also think that spending time just learning how to do the physical examinations with either a tech or a resident is going to be extremely essential. Learning how to utilize the remote to get a quick visual acuity, learning how to work with the tunnel pen. Of course, the slit lamp examination is extremely important, and making sure you hit every point of the exam and do it thoroughly. Don't try and rush through it. And so I would say you can practice with residents. Every resident I've engaged with has been willing to allow me to just learn. And even my mentors, before I went away on the away rotations, they beat it into my head like, this is how you need to work it. And I spent enough time getting used to slit lamp examination. I also purchased my own lenses, and so I have a device that I can that I understand, that I know, this is my digital wide field, and I know how to use it. And so you just get the repetition, and over time you'll be pretty efficient in finding different structures in the eye. I lastly mentioned that when you are doing a good examination of the patient, let's say if the patient noticed or mentioned that they had a retinal detachment or something, or you looked at the previous note where there's a field defect. And so knowing the field defect, and then knowing the anatomy of the retina, that's why anatomy is important. You're kind of able to localize where you need to be looking at through the slit lamp examination, or if you're doing it indirect. And so just thinking about those different components and then really narrowing in during your examination will allow you to be more efficient, and then also show the attending okay, I do know how to navigate the retina, and look at different parts, superior, inferior, different arcades. And it's just going to make you, a better clinician, and ultimately.
So if you want to go ahead, Tiffany, or either way.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I kind of have a unique experience coming into these away rotations. Before med school, I was a tech for 3 years in an academic glaucoma service. And coming in my home program, which I'm very excited that I matched to, has a really wonderful program. As a med student, we're allowed up to 6 weeks of ophthalmology elective time. I did 2 weeks as part of my general surgery rotation, and then I also had 4 weeks as a third year elective. And then we also have a sub internship in ophthalmology, which is I think where I really learned the most and started to get comfortable with doing indirect exams. But I think the big thing is from what I've seen, and from what we're hearing is it's practice is key. A lot of this is muscle memory, and you're not going to be comfortable with the exam, but being willing to try and willing to improve and to set a goal for that is I think going to be the best way that you make the most out of these away rotations and gaining gaining ophthalmology experience as a medical student. So I mean, I don't think I felt I learned the most when I was taking buddy calls. So some of the away rotations you can request. You talk to the residents. A lot of times they won't make you take a call, but if you offer to take call with them, I think that's just the best way to see really what their lives are like when the pager goes off, and kind of the things that they get to go see in the hospital, and you're with them as they're getting the consult and going through the intellectual decision of hey, what's really going on with this patient. So I think that's something that's very valuable. And then also when you're on your away rotation, it's important to set kind of some goals that you want. For example, if you want to give a grand rounds, generally that's very well received. So if you're on the lookout for a specific interesting case, kind of in the first week, you kind of have to make things, you kind of have to be thoughtful as far as what you're looking for and what you might want to talk about to other people. So that's something to think about, because you don't really have a lot of time within 4 weeks to prepare a presentation that is hopefully going to also give a good impression of your not only your public speaking skills, but also your understanding of the case and how it relates to ophthalmology.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that's been said. So definitely Ophtho book by Tim Root. I'm like old and I don't like reading online, so you can buy this. It was like super cheap, and then you can like bring it on your rotation and look like that nice med student. I would also recommend reading this one. This is Basic Ophthalmology, and this is written by the AAO. This is definitely start with the Tim Root one. This one is a little bit more in depth, but I really like this one because it gives like a little bit more information, and it goes through a lot of the subspecialties a little bit further. And I would also add that, like, yeah, it's really important to, like try and work on your clinical exam skills. If it's possible to do your home rotation before you do an away rotation, I would probably recommend doing that because, presumably your home institution likes you and they know you already. And so that's like the time you can make all the mistakes and like ask all the questions and kind of figure out how to use the slit lamp and everything. And then by the time you go to your away, it's not like a brand new thing, and you kind of know already kind of what you're doing. But I will add, when I did my first away, I wasn't like super well versed by any means with like the indirect. I could barely see anything. Like the slit lamp, I was like kind of grading cataracts. And so I think like a lot of other things that med students do really like goes a long way. So like some examples are like if you clean the slit lamp, like the part where they put the chin, if the room is like messy with like a bunch of fluorescein strips, kind of tidying that up. If you like offer to walk patients to imaging or like set up their appointments, like all of that stuff may seem like silly, but it really doesn't go unnoticed. The residents notice that, the attendings notice that, and you're just being like a team player. So there are other ways to make an impression. If your clinical exam skills are not like exactly where you want them to be by the time you go to your away.
And echoing what Tiffany
Having a good attitude.
She's right. Do have a good attitude. I also liked iGuru. I don't know if you guys ever used that one. They had like good videos that anytime I had like a big commute, I could just like play it and listen and just like refresh on certain topics. They had flashcards too, which was helpful. Didn't use much of that, but the videos were more so my speed. And for those that don't have like a home institution, because I didn't, I would highly suggest, like if opto is something you're really serious about, do an elective in it your third year if you can, if they allow you to. I know every med school is different, but that'll at least give you the opportunity to not be like totally lost with the slit lamp, have an idea of how to kind of sort of see something that resembles the back of the eye at the beginning, and just be comfortable with all the new technology that you're going to be working with or like helping other people work with. So just like being comfortable in the scene that is opto is, I think, also really important. And if you can get that exposure early on, do it. It's great. And it'll also help you with the terminology, a lot of acronyms, right, that you need to know. And just like people can tell when you've seen it once or twice prior. So it's nice to have an elective your third year on it. And I highly suggest it, especially if you can't do an at-home rotation.
Say also I don't want people to get worried. Generally, the expectations are kind of low for your knowledge base. I know that you're not going to know, they know that we don't learn a lot of ophthalmology in med school. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If anyone's like getting a little bit panicked about all this, it's okay.
Yeah, another option that one of oh, sorry, did you want to say, Tiffany?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. Another option, like if you don't have a home institution or home department or anything, one of the other UVA students, although we do have a home department, he wasn't able to go on any ways. So he actually reached out to a community private practice, and he ended up actually getting a lot of great experiences and getting a letter from them. And he actually also matched at VCU. So I think that's also a great option. Like I think cold emailing is kind of how you could approach that, but at least being able to get into an opto clinic if you don't have one in your home institution, like kind of built into your med school schedule, that would be definitely an option. And then a little thing that I picked up like halfway through my away was actually just having like a small Staples like notebook that you won't mind like tearing pages away from. I found that was super helpful for like if the doctor ever gives instructions to the patient, you can just be in the corner, like write those instructions down. And as the patient is leaving, give it to them. Attendings actually really notice that. Or like if they're like, where is this clinic or where is this building, you can like search it up on your phone, write down the address, give it to them. All those things to like kind of help patients. Attendings really notice, and residents also really appreciate that. So I think that's just one that you can like tear pages out of easily.
And like one more point on this, like for cases, surgical cases that you're going in, just like watch videos before going to the case. And like there's so many videos online, a lot of them are really short, and just getting like a gist for what the procedure is like. And like say your attending does something different, then you can ask them, I noticed like you did this during this step, but usually people do this. Is there a reason? So that just so they know that you're like following along and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely know the steps of cataract surgery. I will say I got pimped on that at all 3 of my OAs. It's like, you know, low-hanging fruit.
And like I think like ophtho, sometimes it's hard to feel like helpful in the OR. If you're doing any kind of plastics rotation, you practice suturing actually on like chicken legs with chicken skin. That's very similar to eyelids. So you might get the chance to close like a blepharoplasty or something. And if you're working with a surgeon on their like pretty regularly, it's like if you notice what sutures they're using for what procedure and you write it down and then you're able to pull it for the case for them, that's really, really helpful. And they're really going to notice that.
Yeah, just to also add on to those little, so I mean, you know, great points. I think before the surgery, going with the residents just to like, you know, make sure you consent the patient, extremely important. I would frequently like wheel the patients down to the OR room, get the straps, you know, on the patient, put the cushions underneath the feet. And a lot of times these cushions were in the cabinets within the surgery room. And so knowing where everything is located is also going to be helpful because you'll be able to like get those in advance. The nursing staff will love you, and then they'll talk, you know, to the residents or the attendings potentially about you. I know that was the case. And just, you know, like everyone mentioned, be as helpful as you can.
If you each do not mind sharing, how many away rotations did you apply for, and how did you select which programs you applied to?
I'll take this one because I think there was some confusion on the way that I presented the number of OA rotations I did. So kind of like Terry, I did 3 2-weekers. Those were kind of off of VSLO. So I guess that's like 4.5 if I'm doing my math right. But I threw out way too many applications through VSLO, like an ungodly amount. I can't tell you the exact number because it was probably more than like 40, 50. It was ridiculous. I don't suggest doing that. It's a complete waste of time and money. I was just like under the impression that it would be very, very difficult to solidify away rotations. It's actually not that hard. They want you to go. They're excited to see you. They love your enthusiasm and they want to see you there. So I think I only got rejected from 1 away rotation that I applied to, and I think that was Loyola in Chicago. But other than that, most places are willing to take you and are happy to receive you as a student, especially if you apply early on, because deadlines will be written on VSLO. So you just got to write them down. I kind of had like an Excel sheet where I was like, okay, these are the programs that I really like because of X, Y, and Z reasons. They open apps at this time, and I immediately applied. So I would say, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say like maybe knowing what I know now, I would have applied to like 15 or 20 programs. That's still a lot. But I wanted to give myself the flexibility to incorporate them into my schedule in a way that was like back-to-back off the rotation, so I didn't take a break. Yes, that might cause burnout, but I feel like I was really on top of my game because of that.
Yeah, so I kind of had a different approach. I also took a research year, so my schedule was a little bit more flexible. I did my like home ophtho sub-I in like the winter. So I had all of the summer months kind of freed up and open to kind of plan. So I heard from some upperclassmen that you shouldn't turn down any OAs and you should kind of take the first ones you get. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but me being like very paranoid, neurotic, I was like, okay, let's not put myself in that situation. So I applied to like 2 for each month that I wanted to do in a way. So I did 3. So I applied to like 6. And then I like kind of knew what programs I wanted to do it at. So like I did one at New York Year. So I applied to like the one like June, July, I did New York Year. And then like August, September, I did USC. I ended up doing one at USC. And then I kind of like toggled the months so that I would like maximize the chances that I would get that away, like even if I put it down for more than 1 month. And then as soon as I got my first acceptance, I withdrew all of the applications that I had put in for that month. Which honestly, I don't really know if there's any truth to that. I don't even know if they're the same people reviewing the apps, but again, I'm paranoid and it ended up working out fine. So I probably applied between like 6 and 8 and I did 3.
Tiffany's right. Be careful with applying too much because I did have to say no to some. But based on that, I still got an interview from a school that I said no to for an away rotation. So is it completely true? I also didn't get interviews from places that I said no to. So it's like, but I think Tiffany's like approach of like just doing like a couple per like month block is really smart. And the second you get one that you're excited about, pull out. Because if you pull, it doesn't look as bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, so I only did 1 rotation because my school schedule is pretty late. So I only had time to do like 1 or 2. I only had time to do 1 off the rotation before apps went out. I mean 1 away rotation before apps went out. And then doing another one would have been after applications, and I didn't really want to. But I followed Tiffany's approach of applying to like a few, and then like if my plan was basically if I didn't get accepted by those to then add other ones that I was gonna apply to. And I got into one and I accepted it, and then I got into another one. No, and then sorry, I had 2 more left, right? That didn't say anything yet. And I wish I had pulled out, but I just gave it a couple of days, and then one of the other ones accepted me. And then I had to actually like formally say no and like come and tell them that I couldn't do their rotation. I think for some people, this is the thing, for some people probably don't care, but then also other people may be like, okay, maybe there's other programs they're interested in that aren't ours. So, and you just never know where the program's mind is at. So pulling out as soon as you get your away for that block is like your preferred away for that block is probably the best idea.
And to add to that, I applied to about 13 or 14. I was trying to write it down, like 13 or 14 places, and I had said no to 3. And I didn't get interviews from or invites from 2 of the places that I said no to.
Yeah, I kind of had a little bit of a different approach, like not in that I kind of did a combination of like kind of spray and pray, did a lot of apps, but then like as soon as I got them, the ones that I like felt were good, I just withdrew. So I didn't end up having to reject any of them overtly. I think a little background is like I didn't think I was a very strong applicant, so I wanted to apply to ones as early as possible to just like have that experience and build up possibly getting a letter and such. My school also has like the 1.5-year pre-clerkship, so we start 4th year actually in January. So I had that kind of going for me to be able to apply to all of the early ones in May and June. So I ended up going in June and then in August. But I basically based mine off of how early those rotations were, and I applied to I think 12 different schools, but then different times per school. And I guess a hack, I don't know if you guys want to use this, but like if you do the same school but different times, you don't have to pay for each different time. So at least you save a little bit of money like that. But I just looked at my VSLO and I had applied to 27 combinations of different schools and times. So maybe you can like clump them together. But of note, if it's a half away rotation, you do have to pay separately for that, unfortunately.
So going in, I think I applied for 6, but so UT Memphis, my med school, our schedule is on some other planet. We're off by a week, like for everything you're off by a week. And then also one of the away rotations I knew I wanted to apply for, since I had a lot of comprehensive exposure at my home program, was like one of the subspecialty. I know like Baylor has a lot of subspecialty rotations, but they do require step 2 score for your application, and the application deadlines are kind of close. So I would have had to have taken step 2, I think like in April or May, which just was not feasible with my schedule. So I made sure that I knew that like most programs, there's a few programs where you can rotate in May, but most programs, like the prime time is the months of July through, I would say, no later really than November. And so kind of my strategy for my 2 rotations that I ended up taking was, I had one in July, so that was before before applications went out. It overlapped with one of my other rotation at my home program, but there I made sure I put in a flexible rotation that they were like fine with me doing. It had some virtual things, and they were fine with me making it up at a later time. And then in August, I actually did like a combination like research month at my home program, and like it was like research in global ophthalmology experience. And then there was a lot of flexibility in that, because my rotation for October ended up like not lining up at all. So they were very flexible with how I did things for that. So I think that's kind of like a way to deal with things. I know you all probably already have your M4 schedules already done, but if you can kind of plot and look at all the dates, because I think a lot of schools are on just different schedules. So, and a lot of times too, you can email and ask a program, like if they're able to accommodate. Some programs will like be very upfront and say they'll like have it in the VSLO thing. So, but just look for that, because there are some programs that are actually very flexible, and it isn't seen as negatively if you ask. And then kind of also the strategic thoughts on doing a rotation during October is interviews come out in October. So you'll be there like right before interviews come out, you can be like, hey, it's me, I'm here. And so like they know that you're there, and then they still have a chance to see you. So I don't think doing a rotation in October is a bad strategy. And then when you come back for interviews, like they remember who you are, which is nice. So that's definitely an option for people who are considering or might not be able to do a one-way rotation until like a little bit later.
Definitely would second what Catherine said about like doing it, the strategy of doing it in like September, October, because I had 2 out of the 4 people who applied from UVA did that strategy, and they said that like they definitely benefited from that, and they got to know you a lot better while they were thinking about who to interview. And I also saw that play out in my own, like I did one in June and then one in August. The August one gave me an interview, and then the June one hadn't. So I think they just forgot who I was, because I showed up at an open house. They're like, oh yeah, you, okay, well, it's too late now to send you an invite. But yeah, it might be strategic to also not go too early.
And then how did you guys decide what programs to apply for away rotations at? And then for our own journey, should we apply to away rotations at Reach schools, or is it more worthwhile to apply at schools that we believe we're going to be able to match at?
I have a lot to say about this. The way I see some OMSs up in here. So what's up, my osteopathic friends? I highly suggest for you guys to apply for away rotations at places that have taken DOs in the past. As strong of a candidate as you may be score-wise, research-wise, it's still just the reality of the situation that not a lot of places take DO candidates, but that also might be related to the fact that not many of us feel like we can and or should apply ophthalmology. That being said, I personally only did away rotations at programs that took DOs. And I also ensured that I did 3 rotations at programs that were historic DO programs. I could talk more about that. I'll send you guys my email if you guys have more specific questions on that. But if they see you, they are more likely to interview you. And I highly suggest going to places that you either see a DO on staff, DO as a program director, or DO student, or someone just like back in the day they used to take DOs. I think that's extremely important and it'll be beneficial. Are there people that did away rotations at places that never took DOs and then matched? Absolutely. Several people in California, actually the second DO ever in the history of Opto matched in California this cycle at Davis. So shout out to him. Very difficult to do, not impossible, but if you're trying to be strategic about the way you're going about this, which is what I did because I just wanted to be safe rather than sorry, I only applied and I only did away rotations at programs that have taken DOs in the past.
Yeah, so for me, I applied to places that I actually wanted to go to. So I think that's important. Because at the end of the day, like you guys want to go to residency somewhere where you'll be happy. So that's probably the first consideration. The second thing is I hate that I did this, but I looked at Texas Star and I know this is self-reported data, but you can at least get a sense of like, these are like the stats of the applicants that they have taken in previous years. So you can at least see like, is this like very far off? And then one other thing is like, I didn't consider this, but there are some programs that take a lot of away rotators, like 5 people per month for like June, July, August, September, October. And like, they don't interview everyone. And I wish I would have like looked at the spreadsheet and see like how many they take, do they give interviews? Cause you know, let's be real, you're doing the OA because you want to get an interview. And like, it's very frustrating if you like spend a whole month, like being your best self and then you don't get an interview. So that's something other people might be okay with that, but for me, there's also like a financial cost and, you know, all that stuff. So that's something I would also encourage you guys all to look at. So just basically, I just went based off location where I wanted to go and then like generally where I thought I would be able to match.
I agree with a lot of those things. Something I was like, we have a very like, my whole program is very like clinically heavy. So I wanted to make sure that I could see kind of what a different program would look like as well. So I went first to Indiana University for like a general ophthalmology rotation. And so they're like a lot larger program. And so it was interesting to see like kind of like how they did things and the kind of resources and things that were available at their institution. And then since I had so much general ophthalmology experience, I wanted to really have an experience where I'd have that would be very unique in a subspecialty area. So I could delve into looking at different subspecialties. So I ended up doing a pediatric oculoplastic rotation at Penn. And that ended up being a perfect experience for me. It was really nice to spend time like delving into kind of like one patient population and their unique considerations. And it was a great rotation. You work one-on-one with the attending a lot in the fellow. And there aren't a lot of, sometimes there'll be a resident, but it's mostly the 3 of you. So you're scrubbed in for every case, you're getting experience, you're in the OR with the patients. So that was really, really incredible. And but something like to just mention on that standpoint too, is if you do a subspecialty rotation, you may not be getting to work with a good breadth of different attendings. And something that's unique about Penn specifically, I will mention, is that CHOP is very segregated from SHE, and they're in 2 different locations. So I made an effort to go to resident clinic at least once a week and to work with, when I was working with some of the adult oculoplastic attendings, because the attending I worked with, he was at a surgery center like an hour away that was by car, and they didn't take students or residents. So I would make sure that I was like making sure I got exposure to all the other residents and attendings that I could in that time. So use your time wisely and definitely take that into consideration if you're doing like a subspecialty rotation, because that is one kind of con about doing like one specific thing for the entire time that you're at a place.
I second everything that was said before. And really, like on my ocular pathology rotation, I was ducked off in a lab and really didn't interact with much of the other faculty. And so I took advantage of going to like, not necessarily morning rounds, but the lecture series in the mornings. That'd be the time when I'd be able to see like other attendings. But outside of that, I was definitely in a room on the other side.
And then the only thing I will add, is if you guys are intending to get a letter from one of your aways, I would also encourage you to look at what the kind of breakdown of the rotation is. I know for like 2 of my aways, well, actually all of my aways really, like I was just like in different attending clinics every day. And like at New York Gyneer, they have like 100 attending. So I never worked with the same one more than like once or twice. And so if you like really want to get a letter and like make a good impression, you should look at either do like a subspecialty rotation, like Catherine was saying, or you know, look into the schedule, or maybe you can email the coordinator beforehand and say like, hey, like I am interested in like this specialty, like can I spend more time in this clinic with this attending? Maybe they can arrange something for you.
And something I didn't realize, I'd like to add on to that, like going into rotations is not all programs, the programs I rotated at did have resident clinics, but not all programs have resident clinics. One of my classmates rotated at a place where they didn't have a resident clinic. And I think it was harder for her to gain hands-on experience because of that. And it's also, I mean, it's good to see though, because that's a potential situation you could be in as a resident as well when you're looking at programs. But I think it's just good to make sure that you think like, do you want to see something that's super academic, something that's more clinically based, and to be able to balance the different types of programs there are, because it isn't only about exploring the institution, but also what works for you as you pursue residency training.
I think some good resources for seeing what like certain aways are like is looking at like some of the past spreadsheets. I think one of the OptoMatch spreadsheets has like, they did like information about like where people did their aways, and if they had like, some aways do have an exam at the end. So if they had an exam at the end, and if they were expected to present at grand rounds, and then also if they gave out interviews to everyone who rotated there. So I think that's important. You can also, there's a Discord as well that a lot of people use, like a lot of the M3s you guys are going to use at the end of this year, and just asking in that if anyone's done an away at a certain location, and just you can like DM them on the side and get more information about that. And also I think you should look into seeing if there's ways you can save money for your away, because aways are very, very, very expensive. Whether it's like even my away, which was like in my home state, I had to commute by car and had to pay for like the garage every day. So like that was like a huge expense. And then like if you're living somewhere else, of course, like your living accommodations, that's a huge expense. So if you have family in a certain area, it's not a bad idea to do, like if you're interested in a program somewhere where like your aunt or something lives, just staying with her for a month or something. And then also looking into the programs that do have stipends. This is kind of a question for like the rest of the M4s. When I was looking for programs with stipends, I had kind of like a difficulty finding them. Is there like a resource any of you guys use to find like a list of those programs that have stipends?
There's a tab on VSLO, but I think you just have to go on every program you're interested in, like look at generally on their website. A lot of times there'll be stuff that's hidden. There was like Penn had a program, but I think Shay wasn't aware that Penn had a program. So I had to talk to someone and they actually ended up getting it set up. So just be an advocate for yourself and look at the website. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's like a central source. There also is a Facebook page called Medical Sublets. And a lot of times people will be swapping apartments on there. So that's another way to save some money as you're looking for housing in a new location.
Also, some aways will give you kind of like an accommodation for a reduced price. Like if they're in like a major city or something like that, sometimes they would do that. And then in terms of breakdown of reaches versus safety places, I think in my experience, at least, I did mine in Maryland, my way in Maryland, which is where I'm from. So I think usually if you're from that state, they might have a higher chance of taking you, especially if they see like your address, or like a lot of state places especially will be like, can you write a blurb about why you want to come here? I think inserting that in would be kind of a better way to guarantee like a safety. Yeah. So
Thank you all so much. We'll now open the floor to any questions. Aaliyah will be monitoring the chat, so you can either unmute to ask your question or write it in the chat and Aaliyah will read it aloud.
I have a question about letters of rec. So how would you all suggest is the best way to go about getting a letter of rec from an away, like someone you worked with on your away rotation? Like obviously everyone knows it might be coming, but like how's the best way to navigate that without making it seem like very selfish? You know what I mean?
So
So,
sorry, go ahead, Harold, because I was going to say I didn't get one from an away
yeah,
rotation.
so I didn't get one either, but I think a good thing to do is like first, like think about it from like the attending's perspective. If someone asks you for a letter of recommendation, it's not going to be like an offensive thing. Like when you're an attending, you're going to be writing letters of rec. It's going to be very normal. I think if you're, it depends on the type of away. Like my away, I was shadowing a different attending every day, so it would have been difficult to ask one attending like in advance, like at the beginning of the rotation. But I think if there's going to be an attending that you can see consistently, asking them ahead of time, like, would you be open to writing me a letter if I work with you like over the next 4 weeks, and then just like putting in the like and just mentioning it at the beginning so that they're mentally like preparing to write you a letter and like paying attention and stuff. I think is a good idea instead of just like the last day asking for a letter. I don't know what the others think.
So I was able to get a letter. I got 2 letters for my second rotation. This was before the application season. And I feel like the attendings kind of understood that, you know, you're here, you're hopefully going to get a letter and we expect you to get a letter. And so we kind of had a conversation in the beginning about, you know, the expectations and that a letter would be something that would come out of it if, you know, you performed well. And so they were just open. I was open about wanting it. And since I was with a specific, I was in plastics. And so that being said, it wasn't like I was with other attendings. I was with the same attendings consistently. And so that was, I guess, helpful.
I had 3 ophthalmology letters from my home institution. So I didn't look for, I didn't pursue a letter recommendation on my away rotations. But I agree, just asking early so you make your expectations clear and like they're aware that they will be watching what you're doing and how you're interacting on the rotation will go a long ways. And then also when you confirm with them at the end, I think it's also important, like, if you can ask them, hey, I worked with you on these things, just confirm that they're willing to write a strong letter recommendation, because there's nothing worse than having like potentially having a lukewarm letter of rec. And I know it's hard because like you're getting to know these people over just 4 weeks and they only know a little bit of you. And I think with some of that too, when you're asking for letter recommendation, a lot of times they'll want a copy of your CV and then also your personal statement. So by the time you're on your away rotations, you should at least have like a decent draft of your personal statement, I would say, if you're like kind of looking at timelines for things. So having that ready and that information makes their job a lot easier. And then they also, it's another way they can get to know you a little bit better and write a stronger letter.
Yeah, I agree. Like strong letters are very important, and like a lukewarm letter from like a certain institution, I don't think would be looked at as highly as a really strong letter from like your home institution or your home ophthalmologist that knows you well. Like, and even mine, like I did two letters from my home ophthalmology department, and then I did one letter from a mentor that's actually not doesn't work in ophthalmology, and his letter was actually like I think the strongest because a lot of my interviewers would mention his letter even though he wasn't involved in ophthalmology. So I think a strong letter that can really like from someone that is really impressed by you like goes a long way.
Thank you guys.
I have a question if you guys can hear me. Since we're on the topic of letters of recommendation, just from a utility perspective of like the actual CAST application through SF Match, are you only able to upload like 3 letters of recommendation period, or can you upload more letters in that and like pick and choose which programs to send which letters to?
Yeah, I uploaded 4, and I was able to select which programs that I wanted, my letter writers to have, I guess.
Something to think about too, since we're talking a little bit about applications, is you also can do the same for your personal statement and kind of personalize it for all of the programs, but just make sure you're attaching the correct statement to the correct program. I personally didn't do it, but I have a friend who did. She did a different one for every single program, and like she hit a little part where she personalized for every single program, and I think that's above and beyond and is absolutely not necessary. I don't think my having one single personal statement affected my application process at all. So just want to put that out there in case that's something people want to do, but please you don't have to do it. And I didn't do it, and I would not do it if I was given the option to go through this process again.
Yeah, I didn't do it either. And I applied to like 85 programs.
I have a question that's kind of more specific to, I guess, kind of what I'm kind of navigating right now. I'm in kind of a similar position to you, Tiffany, where I'm in the process of applying for a research year. And so I am trying to think of if I should apply for my away rotations or not, because I haven't got any like official confirmation or not. And I'm getting a little anxious at this point, thinking if I'm gonna have enough time to do and plan the away rotations that I want, but I also, don't want to cancel them in the case that I do get the away rotation. How understanding do you think they will be if I, get the away rotation and then need to cancel it because I would prefer to do the research year? I feel like limbo at this point, and I'm not really sure if you guys have any take on which way to go. And for everyone else, I'm really sorry that this is a very specific question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really tough. I decided I was taking my research year even before I found like a mentor who would take me. And so I kind of just went with it. So I didn't have exactly the same issue. If your school allows you to do rotations during your research year, my school allowed me to do that, but then I heard that was like not a very common thing. I would maybe ask first for that, because that way you get the best of both worlds. But I personally I was the program director, like you are trying to make yourself better, like by taking a research year. It's not like you're not interested in their program. So I think if you explained very nicely, and then you'd be applying a whole year later, so I'm pretty sure they won't even remember. So I wouldn't sweat it that much. Just remember your nice email etiquette and try and withdraw as soon as you find out.
Thank you.
I actually also took a research year, and I didn't do aways until my 4th year. So I just stayed, I didn't apply to aways until I was officially back into the school year for medical school. But I think probably, like Tiffany said, the most flexible option would be actually to do it during your research year, because then you would have a lot more time flexibility outside of the normal rotation schedule that schools usually try to implement. If they're willing to do that, that actually might be a better option than waiting till 4th year like I did.
Sorry, to kind of follow up with that. So the response that I kind of got from my school was that I'd have to pay for tuition for that whole entire year. So did you just pay for a 5th year? Is that what you did, or? Okay, I
No,
just wanted to see if
yeah.
that was standard or not, because
That's not
do I have the
standard.
money to do that?
No. My
Oh.
school is really great and they let us take a research year without paying extra tuition. And they actually paid me for taking a research year, so.
I don't know, maybe would they let you do they do the rotations on the research year if you weren't getting credit for them? Because you still can put that on your CV. That might be potentially, there's like a small cost for doing the away rotations and like applying for them generally,
I
but it's
can
just really
ask, maybe
not.
I'm just not asking the right question. Yeah. But yeah, sorry, we can totally move on to another question, and I can probably reach out to you guys on the side too, if that's okay.
If anyone has an additional questions, please feel free to ask them. We just want to be respectful because the program was set to end at 9 p.m. So if anyone has to leave, we understand as well.
I have another quick question if no one else has a question, but I feel bad because I already asked one.
Please go ahead, Lily. It's
Okay. Okay, so I just like confirming, because I'm like looking on Vislo right now. So if a program doesn't list like that they need like a letter of recommendation as one of their requirements, did that typically hold true for you guys, or would they sometimes actually require that it just wasn't listed or something?
No, I only applied to programs that didn't require letters because I didn't have time for that. So if it doesn't say that it needs one, then you don't need one.
Cool. Thank you.
Same. I actually only applied to programs that didn't require letters or personal statements because I just didn't have time to deal with that.
Yeah. Understand.
Same.
Yep, same here.
I was stressing out writing personal statements and letters, but I would do it differently probably. I don't know.
Oh, I have a question. I don't know if any of you guys did attend national conferences before your 4th year, but if you did, do you have any tips on networking for programs at the conferences before away rotations or even before interview season? Like I've heard things about maybe going up to posters from schools that are presenting and kind of introducing yourself. And if you guys had any other networking tips, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I kind of did do that at AAO. What I would do honestly was go to presentations. It wasn't like program specific. I'd go to presentations that I was like really interested in, like global ophthalmology presentations, and then just being in that environment, like after their talks or whatever, like you're just like, since that's your interest, like you have questions, follow-up questions to ask the people. So it's like a genuine reason to go talk to these people. And a lot of them give you their contact without you even like asking for it. But if you ask for it, they would give it as well. But if it's someone you're not like genuinely interested in talking to, it may be like a little awkward to like I don't know, is that a cold conversation, or I don't know what that's called, but like it may be a little awkward to just walk up to them. But if they do what you want to do in the future, it's easier for you to have the combo.
Yeah, definitely. And so to piggyback on that, I went to a few different national conferences, and so I went to ASOPers, and before I knew that, okay, there's a list of people that I wanted to meet because, I'm interested in plastics. And so all these attendings from these, top schools are going to be here. And so I made a PDF document based off of the attendees that had signed up, and they sent out a list of all the attendees who would be there to us. And so I found the list, looked at the faces, looked who were like program directors or directors of specific directors of oculoplastics. And so I saw who I wanted to talk to based on the schools that I knew I was applying to. And I went just around, and, if they're presenting or if they were just randomly standing, I would, spark up a conversation with them. And one was extremely, extremely receptive. And she's at Michigan Oculoplastics, and basically gave me like a a pseudo interview right there. She was like, you know, let me get your name real quick. And it was, you know, it was great after that. I got an interview there. But it's extremely beneficial. But for sure, of course, like Harold said, like if you go to, you know, a topic or a subspecialty day, if you know, do the academy, you can go to the retinal subspecial day or any of those subspecialty days. Those are extremely beneficial because you can meet literally leaders in the field, network with them, and then you can set up meetings with them after. And that's, you know, I did that a lot, set up meetings with them via Zoom, and they're extremely receptive. You just have to put yourself out there.
Terry, was that Dr. Kim? She's
No, no, no.
amazing. No?
Oh, no. Yeah, Denise, Dr.
Yeah,
Denise.
she's
Yeah,
amazing.
no,
Some-
she's good.
One of the tips I have for Academy, since it's a massive meeting and it's very overwhelming, especially as a medical student, is to hang out. They have something called the Yo Lounge and the Yo programming. So it's the young ophthalmologist. There's a lot of residents that'll be there. And I think in general, like the programming, like that might be also a nice way you can go and meet and talk to some of the residents, because a lot of times residents are involved somehow, maybe on an interview day or application process. And if they if you can meet residents and fellows who are at the institution, that's always helpful too. And it's very valuable considering everything's virtual. You want to know that you're meeting and talking to normal humans that you want to be friends with, because they're going to be your friends one day too. Something I'd like to really recommend is Young MD Connect. They have their live conference. It's specifically for trainees, and specifically for trainees to get mentorship. Their conference is going to be in Austin at the end of March. Sorry, look at my calendar. March 24th, 25th. So if you're around the area, that's definitely something to go to. Or if you can go to it next year, they also have scholarships if you apply far enough in advance with an abstract. And it's definitely worthwhile to go to that conference specifically because it's very approachable. And I agree, just going up and talking to people is and especially if they have something that they've done that's interesting, that's definitely a good way to break the ice and show them that you're interested in them and their work.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
I just have a quick question, even though I'm posting everything on the chat. I was wondering if you think things will continue to be virtual as the years go on, and if you think that's beneficial cost-wise, but you don't get to visit the program.
From what I've heard from program directors is they intend on doing everything virtual because of the cost is just such a benefit. That's what I've heard through the grapevine and the rumor mill.
Echoing, that's what I heard as well. It's going to mostly be, but the specialties are already starting fellowship wise as of even the cycle that just matched into fellowship. Retina was a lot in-person interviews. So if the fellowships start doing it, maybe you guys will have the opportunity to go, or maybe they'll open how they have second looks for ERAS applications. Maybe something like that will start manifesting soon. But I think for at least the next 2 cycles, it's probably going to be all online. And I don't think that hindered anything. It could make it a little difficult to get the substance of the programs, but the cost benefit, I think, much outweighed the loss of not being there in person.
At this time, I'd like to thank Harold, Naira, Terry, Tiffany, Catherine, and Xiaoyu for your time this evening. We really, really appreciate all the wisdom and the time you took to spend with us. Thank you so much for everyone who attended. The session was recorded and we will share it out sometime this week. Good evening. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for setting it up.
No problem. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for organizing.
Thank you for organizing it.
This was awesome. See you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Good luck, guys. You got it.
Thank you.